So my body count is 500, and it got me thinking, what is the average person's? Like,
Damn, that sounds like a super fun life. A life I will never have because unfortunately I had good parents with standards.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we will talk about women's behavior. We will listen to a man's speech telling us that men are the problem and that dating a woman with a high body count is nothing more than a fear stemming from our weakness and internalized misogyny. We want to invite you to smash that like button and help us reach 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year to earn our first plaque. That's the only support we ask for, man. Add your grain of sand to the movement. Share your experiences in the comments for any man who needs it. And without further introduction, let's get started.
This idea that this is only important for women and that this doesn't have any effect on men sleeping around, or it doesn't indicate anything about men's likely personalities, it doesn't make much logical sense. Men who have higher body counts and men who are more sociosexually unrestricted generally have all the same negative outcomes.
But the difference is a man who is sexually promiscuous, that's not seen as a negative outcome.
Thank you, Mac and Murphy, for validating everything I've ever thought about pair bonding in a high body count. When I hear people talk about these studies, they're always about women unable to pair bond if they have a high body count, but this is obviously not just the case with women, men too. The data shows that people with a higher body count, not just women, are more likely to be unfaithful, less likely to be satisfied in a monogamous relationship, and more likely to get a divorce. Sleeping around on both ends isn't good. I am so overhearing about women having difficulty pair bonding when it's an issue between both men and women. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic down below.
Stop it. Get some help.
If it's a problem, the first thing is that a woman with a high body count indicates emotional instability, meaning she has no commitment to anything. Second, a woman with a high body count is more likely to be unfaithful in a relationship. This brings many other issues. It can be compared to men who are womanizers. It's the same problem. Yes, that's true. But here's the thing. The number of womanizing men compared to women is a minority. Few men today can say they've been with more than 50 women, but the average woman surpasses that number easily. I'm not saying it's a competition, but habits shape humans. Once you get used to something, trying to erase those patterns becomes almost impossible. However, Mr. Simp will give a good explanation of this in the next video.
so my body count is 500, and it got me thinking, what is the average person's? Like,
Damn, that sounds like a super fun life. A life I will never have because unfortunately I had good parents with standards.
Hilarious. Men only have two responses to women enjoying their sexuality. Either she has daddy issues, or it's hot dog down a hallway again and again and again. And it's bad enough that guys for years have been trying to convince everyone that the reason men like themselves are stuck being single, whoa, veered wildly off script there. Sorry. The reason that women can't find a good man is because their standards are too high, too unrealistic. But when a woman comes along to show that there is no shortage of men willing to entertain the kind of woman they claim is all used up, has no value, and men do not want, well then they double down on shaming and insults, even though we all know they would be the first to get in line if they had the opportunity. Because otherwise they wouldn't need to back up their rhetoric by making up things about women's bodies that are absolutely not true. It's a myth invented to shame women and to reinforce archaic notions that women are not supposed to engage in or enjoy intimacy, which has to be one of the biggest ways of telling on yourself, gentlemen. The reality is, like any skill, it does not get devalued the more you practice it. And if you want to reserve your cooking skills for your spouse in order to make it more meaningful and special, then that's beautiful, more power to you. But let's stop with this notion that Gordon Ramsay is less of a human being because he satisfied more people. And that it's okay to shame, ridicule, and insult him for it because he'll give anyone a slice of his beef Wellington. It is far more likely that it is this juvenile understanding of women's bodies, the constant need to degrade others, that is keeping men from finding meaningful connections.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Because like any skill, it doesn't devalue with more practice. So why don't you choose a woman like that to marry? Because you know all the problems that come with it. But sure, I don't go through that, but I approve of those who do. These are the simp men who say what women want to hear just to get their attention. Now, I bet they would never marry a woman with a body count of 500 men. Brothers, do you know what 500 men are? He's right. There will always be a man available to keep increasing the number, because for intimacy, there's always someone available. But from that to having her as a wife, there's a huge gap. What he doesn't tell you is the suffering you'll endure being with a woman like that. What he doesn't tell you is the risk you take of getting a sexually transmitted disease from being with a woman like that. What he doesn't tell you is the shame of going somewhere with a woman every man in the place has been with. What he doesn't tell you is that the more she's used, the more she wears out. You know what? What he doesn't tell you is the immense risk of paternity fraud with a woman with those habits. What he doesn't tell you is the high possibility of her cheating on you in the relationship multiple times, I assure you. Because, of course, Mr. Simp says it's nothing, but I bet his woman isn't like that.
It's not that men can't have preferences, it's all about how they express those preferences. See, any of the men watching that video could have realized that that woman is not their preference and moved on. Instead, they took time out of their day to let everybody know, to broadcast, that this woman is not their preference. And then, on top of that, they opted to shame her, insult her, and degrade her. And all because she does not live her life in compliance with their preference. And at that point, it stops being about a preference. It's about shaming and insulting everybody else into complying with your preference, ridiculing and insulting any woman who dares to live differently.
You serious?
It's true, he has a point, but you also express yourself against everything men say. You could keep your opinion to yourself, but with your free right, you can express yourself, like your channel called Expatriarchal. It's the same as this channel called The Wall. What it's doing is expressing your freedom of speech, just like the hundreds of videos of women expressing their preferences on the internet. For example, the 666 of the apocalypse. A man with six-pack abs, a man who is 6 feet tall, a man who earns at least 6 figures. So, it's okay for a woman to express her preferences, which discard and offend almost 80% or more of men. But if a man says he doesn't want a woman with a high body count, it's wrong. Because it's an attack if it comes from a man's mouth, but it's objectivity when a woman says it.
So by using your logic, one shouldn't be attacked for such preferences, correct? And yeah, bingo, you nailed it. Men are not getting attacked for having preferences. Simply having a preference doesn't mean that anybody else has to know what that preference is. See, before I met my amazing wife, I used to be a prolific dater. I would go on 2 or 3 dates a week, and sometimes those dates would lead to a second date, but more often than not, they wouldn't, which would then mean sending them a message. It was lovely to meet you, thank you for giving your time, enjoyed getting to know you more, but ultimately I didn't feel the connection I was looking for, but I do wish you well on your search. Now, notice the difference between the type of message I would send and saying something like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for someone who is intelligent. Or, I prefer women with a sense of humor, and that's not you. Or, I only date athletic and attractive women. Your body type is gross to me. I really want somebody who has some self-esteem and actually works out. And the excuse given is that I'm just expressing my preference. But in every single case here, you're not merely expressing your preference, but you're making a judgment call about that person. You value intelligence, and you're letting that person know you don't think they're intelligent. And then acting all surprised and shocked that the person is getting defensive, insulted, and upset at you after you just insulted them, telling them that they're not smart or funny or attractive or loyal or moral or a good person or whatever it is. But just letting that person know they are not a match makes it abundantly clear they are not your preference. And that is all you need to communicate. And if you're not actively dating that person, if you're just scrolling on by on social media, then good news, you don't even need to communicate that. And so if you are feeling attacked for having preferences, try just having preferences without feeling the need to jump into the comments and broadcast them to people who never asked.
Good point, but you also respond to other people's opinions or preferences when nobody asked you. When you look at many modern women's dating profiles today, you see how they expose their preferences. Whether it offends you or not, they don't care. So why should men care if their preferences bother women? Why should men always be respectful when women are disrespectful to them? I agree that one can reject someone courteously because telling the truth in an unempathetic way just makes you look like an idiot. But men in this country receive more verbal abuse than women. The only thing guys like this say is that you should endure it because your opinion shouldn't be expressed, even when you're the one being insulted. There are men with severe traumas from what a woman said to them because she may not hit you, but she can damage your mind with her words. But he won't say anything to those women because they are the so-called weaker sex. He has to sell his little speech. I'll tell you something. I know many of those messages he sent, even if they were polite, didn't end well. We've seen hundreds of videos where a man rejects a woman in a certain way, and we see how women react the worst way to it. But let's continue, because the last video is a great response to what Mr. Simp said.
Do you think that American women are unmarriageable?
Here's the answer that most men will tell you. We don't just think it. We know it. Now, it is a legitimate question you're asking, and it's one many women are asking. Why aren't men wifing us up anymore? Why aren't they even asking us out? Now, in her video, she brings up things like women have become more promiscuous and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, that might be a fair point. I mean, the average guy doesn't look at a woman with a high body count as someone who's wife material. He'll look at her as, well, you know what material. The real issue right now is the complete and utter lack of respect that today's modern women have for men. They don't respect us as human beings. They don't respect us as men. And they say it all the time. Oh, they won't say it directly, but they'll say things like, we don't need you anymore. You don't serve any purpose in society. You're the old way. It's women's time now. And men have heard that over and over again. And the other part of it is they have this preconceived notion of what a man is supposed to be and what he's supposed to do. And what is he supposed to be? Very simply, perfect, as in not a single flaw. He looks perfect, he acts perfect, he does everything to make her happy, or as they like to call it, providing for her. It's why they have that long laundry list of criteria that they expect the man to meet, not just when he's first dating her, but for the entirety of their relationship. And the minute he doesn't do any of that, she'll toss him aside. And even if a man managed to actually meet all those criteria, guess what? She'll start moving the goalposts. And even if he continues to hit the mark, the time will come where he'll miss on something. He'll do 99 things right, but that one thing he does wrong, that's the one she's going to focus on. That is how today's modern women think. Men know it, men see it, and men are tired of it, which is why men are walking away. Dating, relationships, marriage, over and done with for men. Oh, sure, we'll do the old hit it and quit it, but wife you up ain't gonna happen. It is what it is, ladies. Y'all have said for how many decades now you don't need us anymore. We heard you, and now we're giving you what you want. Which begs the question, why do y'all keep asking, where did the men go?
Give this man a beer. But Mr. Simp doesn't correct these behaviors in women because, of course, it's the fault of the patriarchy and men's misogyny. What we see today with men is a reaction to the abuses women have inflicted on us for a decade. Many men don't want to take the risk of getting married, ending up in a woman's TikTok story where she plays the victim and accuses you of being an abuser or living in constant manipulation. Or they fear that if they get married and spend a significant amount of money to accommodate a woman, she might decide not to deal with you anymore, divorce you without reason, and first accuse you of emotional abuse to take everything. I know men need to improve, of course, we know that. Here, we always support men to bring out their best version because when a man is masculine, focused on his life path, and prioritizes himself, even his wife and children benefit. But saying all men are bad while ignoring the current behavior of women makes Mr. Simp's argument a total fallacy because not everything is one-sided. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. Do you think men should accept a woman with a body count of 500 men? What do you think about what that great defender of modern women expressed? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.